Hello, welcome to the Growth Hacking and Customer Acquisition course. My name is Obaloluwa Adiagbo. For starters, when we think about growth, what comes to mind? I know when we think about growth, we think in terms of speed. I mean, how fast is a company growing? How fast are they able to get revenue? How fast are they able to get massive amount of users? How fast are they able to reach unicorn valuation? How much employees do they have? How much impact are they actually creating within either the ecosystem or within their vertical? For number of users, recently we had ChatGPT was able to get about 1 million users just within a week. That's super fast. Things are evolving and technology startups are gaining so much traction in a very short time. And if you're trying to grow something uh, big within a very short period of time, then that's growth, right? You can have a situation where you have a company or an organization that is acquiring about 100,000 users within 2 years versus another company that is acquiring 100,000 users within 2 weeks. Now, they both acquired 100,000 users, but the person who achieved it in the very shortest amount of time is the person that you would consider or the organization you consider as achieving growth, right? So those are the things that comes to our mind anytime we think about growth. We think in terms of speed, we think in terms of revenue that the company is having, we think in terms of number of users, we think in terms of the valuation and the impact or the number of employees that the company do have. So why high speed growth? High speed growth because high speed growth actually indicates great returns to shareholders. They can actually predict long-term success of a company if the company is gaining traction at a very fast pace and in their numbers, either in terms of revenue, in terms of user base, in terms of adoption. It's a predictor of long-term success, so to say. Also because it predicts, it create new jobs, and companies that are growing very fast have the ability to differentiate themselves even much more from other companies. So one key thing to note is that to achieve high-speed growth of companies, startups must be agile and rapidly develop their businesses to achieve enough momentum to attract customers. The keyword there is momentum, so that they can attract customers, secure funding, and hire great talent. That's the thing to note when we are thinking in terms of high speed growth. And so to achieve all that for your startup, these are the things that we're going to be covering in this course. We're going to be looking at the concept of growth hacking. We're going to be looking at growth foundations. We're going to be looking at customer acquisition and retention. And we're going to look at the growth framework, which is what we call the Grouse framework. And so this is what we're going to be looking at in this course. So let's jump right into it. So what is growth hacking? Growth hacking is a marketing technique that focuses on using rapid experimentation and data driven strategies to identify the most effective ways to grow a business. That's what growth hacking is in the shortest form, right? There are two key things here when you think of growth hacking. You think about rapid experimentation and it is data driven. And so speed is part and parcel of growth hacking. If you are too slow, if you are not blitz scaling, that means you are not growing fast. Or if you are not failing fast enough, that means you are not knowing what is not working so that you can actually grow. So that rapid experimentation is part of what is part and parcel of growth hacking. Also, data is highly used. Data is used to make decisions where growth hacking is concerned, right? Because you are looking for the most effective ways to actually grow a business through those two strategies. And so, are we trying to hack growth? Yes. So hackers try to find various ways and password combinations to hack somebody's account, maybe an email account. They are doing a lot of things. They are checking the person's profile and the friends that they do have just to be able to know about the person. So research is going on about the person they want to hack. They are trying to see if they can hack other accounts that the person do have. Maybe the person is using the same password for various accounts. They also use technology that can generate multiple passwords. They try to use the general things that people use for password. Do people use their birthdays? Do people use their first name? Is the person a Christian? Is the person a Muslim? What's the person using? What kind of post is the person posting on social? To be able to determine that. And they are doing that using various combinations, using a lot of technologies, using just all manners of means. They might even try to scam the person if the person is somebody that uses the same password for everything, so that they send you an email and then so that you can fill in your name and password. They might even send the mail as though it's the mail to that particular platform. So maybe it's Instagram dot co and not dot instagram.com. So they make it look exactly like that, so that when you are signing in with your password, and then they are able to have access to your password. Yeah, so they are trying a lot of means to be able to hack that one password. And so that's the concept around growth hacking, right? Like the same way hackers try all manners of things to be able to find that one thing that will make the business to grow. So hackers, they might use research, and they might use technology and so on. So that is the meaning around the word growth hacking. Now, the father of growth hacking is this guy called Sean Ellis. I respect him so much. He's a marketer and an entrepreneur. He first used the term in a blog post that is titled Find a Growth Hacker for Your Startup in 2010. So in the post, they defined a growth hacker as a person whose true north is growth. So within the company, he claimed that you should have somebody whose focus is on growth. Now, this is not your typical marketer. For example, where I was working initially, I was the head of growth at RiseVest, to say one of the leading fintech companies in Nigeria. But we also had a head of marketing. We had a social media person. We had content person. Like, so we had all this is we had designers, we have dev guys, we had product guys, right? So you have all these people, and my job was to focus on growth, right? You will argue that why do you have somebody who's the head of marketing and then you have another person who's the head of growth? That's because for somebody who's doing, whether you call it growth hacker or growth marketing, we're going to take a look at that very shortly. What the difference is that your work is to sit constantly on growth. The marketer might be measuring some other metrics that the growth marketer or the growth hacker is not focused on. So he asserted that you should have somebody within your organization whose main focus is growth. That is what the person is saying. So he was the one that popularized this before the concept actually grew. Now, a lot of companies had been doing growth hacking, but maybe they didn't call it growth hacking. They've been doing growth marketing, especially for technology startups, because they use unconventional approaches to grow, to initially grow their businesses. So he was the father of growth hacking. And then we have quite a number of examples that many growth hackers used to refer to. You have companies that did some specific things to initially grow their businesses. You have companies like Airbnb, you have Dropbox, you have Uber, you have Automail, and then you have PayPal. Right, so we have such companies, and what did Airbnb actually do? So what Airbnb and what did they do? So to overcome the challenge of limited inventory and attract more hosts and guests, Airbnb implemented a growth hacking strategy, and they created a post to Craigslist feature that allowed hosts to automatically list their Airbnb properties on Craigslist so that they can reach a broader audience and increase bookings. So you had people who wants to actually put out their house for Airbnb. So I have an apartment, I'm the host, and I want people to know about it. If people didn't know about Airbnb initially, so where do people usually go to when they are trying to look for an apartment to stay? It is Craigslist. But Airbnb is different from Craigslist. So they didn't buy Craigslist. So what did they do? What they did is just something simple like this. They sent this type of email. They work with the dev guys so that when you click on this particular link or the hyperlink in this email, you easily share. It just kind of like auto populates and share into Craigslist if you are already signing into Craigslist. Many people in the US were already using Craigslist and all that. So it was just easy for the host to easily just share on Craigslist like that, and it will pull out all the records and all the details of the posting on the Craigslist platform, and then many people are able to see it. So the hosts were the one that were actually doing the advertisement from them, because Craigslist was a big thing, and that is where people go to when they are searching for something like that. So just a simple hack, not marketing on Instagram or Facebook or that. Anyway, I don't think we had that so much then. So that was what they did. So they found that one growth hack that actually made them to move faster in user acquisition. You also had Dropbox. Today we have the two-way referral program that is being used by startup, but it was popularized by Dropbox. As simple as it may sound today, somebody popularized it. A particular organization called Dropbox actually was the first set of people to do that. So Dropbox used a clever referral program to drive user growth. They offered existing users free additional storage space when they referred new users. They incentivized the user to share Dropbox with their friends and colleagues. So that resulted insignificant increase in signups. I'd read earlier on that they actually tried to do marketing, and they were spending so much, I think over $300 just for one person to be acquired, an active user to be acquired. So, and it was not bringing returns. There was no way they were going to have like a payback. The payback period was going to just get longer and longer and long, because what value are they going to get from that user if they keep spending that amount of money to acquire a user? So they did the two-way referral system. All they did was to say, get up to 16 gig of free space just by inviting your friends to Dropbox. So all you needed to do was to copy the link, invite your friend to Dropbox. You want to save things in the cloud. When you invite your friend and your friend actually joins, then you get it free. So it was your friend. You don't just get, your friend actually gets something also. So you have something like this. They actually, one of the things that they did was to include this within their onboarding process. When you are actually onboarding on Dropbox, they made it to be part of the onboarding process. So you are, quote and unquote, forced to share, and in being forced to share, you are actually getting something in the process, because when you share that way, of course, you are able to proceed with to continue your onboarding, even if your friend has not joined yet, but at least you've shared. And then when your friend joins, you are able to get a specific amount of gig free space, which was good, right? So this was another hack. You can see and note something about this two that I mentioned, Uber and Airbnb. They include, you see that technology is involved in this. There's a whole lot of automation to be able to track that somebody came through a user. You have a unique referral code system and things like that. So the dev guys were actually involved in that. And we're going to look at that later, how growth doesn't always have to be that you do not need other parts of the team, but actually when you are doing growth, you will need other members of the team to drive the growth. So you had Dropbox also doing that. And then you had Uber also. Uber did something like that, very similar, where you had to refer a friend. Mind you, referring a friend to get something back in those days wasn't as popular as we have it today. So we have people doing a lot of put referral code, invite your friend today, but it wasn't as popular as then, because Uber needed to also build trust. They needed to build trust. They were looking for drivers, but it's like a yin and yang. You needed a lot of drivers, and you also needed a lot of riders. But if the driver won't come into the platform, also if the demand is not there, because if you have so many drivers than the people that are actually using the ride, then you have an oversupply because there's no demand. So to create the demand, they had to just tell people to come in that, you know what, you can have a free ride. So they began to do that. It was messy at first, and so they did a refer a friend campaign where you actually just needed to share either your code, or you can share directly into Twitter, Facebook, or via email, so that you receive credits, and you can actually get up to $500 credits. You can literally even keep inviting people and get up to five. So to get that, so that means you can get a free ride, right? So if a ride is $15 and your friend has joined, you get 10, right? You get $10. So you give 10, you get 10. So it was a double-sided referral program also, where your friend is actually going to get a free ride, or let me put it that way, a credit for the ride, right? Not necessarily free, a credit for the ride, and you also get credit for the ride. So that was one of the ways that they drove adoption. Hotmail also did something, and all they needed to do, because it was a free email, was just to simply put like a postscript at the end of each of the emails that you sent. Remember, it's a free mail. They just had to put that there. They weren't growing. It was they've tried all manners of tactics to make people use Hotmail, but that wasn't working. And all they needed to do was just to do was to put something at the footer. So Hotmail was one of the pioneers of the web-based email. They utilized a simple yet effective growth hacking technique. They added a signature at the end of each email sent from their platform. They added it automatically. You don't even need to add it. So they added that, and they've just put something at the bottom, which is PS, which is postscript, I love you. Get your free email at Hotmail. So this viral loop helped to spread awareness about Hotmail and resulted in rapid user acquisition, making it one of the most successful email services of its time. So they did something like this. It will be placed at the footer of the email, and then when you send to your friend, they append this automatically to it. Your friend clicks on it, your friend signs up for Hotmail. And then you have PayPal also. PayPal also did something like that, where they gave some set of amount of money. It was super, it kind of like expensive on their part, because this time around they weren't just giving credit, they were actually giving a monetary reward of $10 also. But this strategy actually had helped PayPal to quickly grow its user base, as people are motivated by the financial reward. I mean, it's also created a lot of network effect, because I mean, a lot of people like free money, so that was what they did. So you get $10 for referring a friend, right? So you just send one cent to a friend who doesn't have PayPal. Once you send, so they wanted you, they didn't just want you to send, they want you to send. They wanted you to use the platform. So when you use the platform, you can actually get $10. So it was both like an acquisition technique and an activation technique, because they wanted you to use the product. And in the process of actually using the product, you are also inviting someone else. So those are some of the growth hacks that, very popular within the growth hacking community that has been used. Now, many of these things seem pretty normal today, and that's the thing about growth hack. They fade off. They fade off because once something is known and something is used over and over again, and people get a hang of it, and users and customers get a hang of it, it's almost like they understand. Now, ultimately, is not doing what they are doing today. That's not what they are using to drive adoption. That's not what they are using to drive the user base. That's not what Dropbox is using again today, because Dropbox is not doing that. The Dropbox is has used other means of distribution. For example, Dropbox kind of pre-installed with a lot of Windows laptop, working together with Microsoft, and that's distribution. So that's another form of growth hack, where you have something like embedded products, or maybe like embedded finance, things like that. So you can't, and that's the thing about the growth hack. Once, and it's the same way people use virus. For example, people use virus to hack people's system, and then the antivirus, they learn from how people who are creating viruses, they learn from it, and then the people that are creating the viruses and all that, they also keep upping their game. So that's the thing about hacking, right? Things that are used in the past could be stale, and we're going to look at whether indeed we should be growth hacking, because that's the ideology around growth hacking. Now, the thing about a growth hacker is that a growth hacker will actually need to work with many teams. Growth hacking is actually cross-functional. I mean, many of the things that we mentioned about those companies needed a developer. How do you generate codes? How do you embed certain things on your side? How is it that you're able to track that somebody actually joined through your own unique nick? So you needed a software engineering person to do that. So even if the software engineering person do not discover that, the growth hacker is able to actually make that type of discovery. So you can see growth hacking right there in the middle of everything, right? We're working with data analysts. The growth hacker is working with a marketer, is working with a developer, is using applied psychology. That means he has to understand the people online, how they behave, marketing in a digital world, understanding and developing with retention in mind. The growth hacker, we have to understand a little bit of UI and UX. That is how a growth hacker is seen. That's what you are looking at in someone who is actually a growth hacker. So that being said, I wanted to look at the difference between growth hacking and growth marketing, and why a lot of top initial growth hackers or growth marketers today do not like to use the word growth hacking again, and that there's been an evolution of that. So growth hacking, refers to a mindset and set of strategies that prioritize rapid and scalable growth. That's another thing about growth hacking. They just want to grow at all costs sometimes, and how much users are you having, in a very very short time, and it involves a lot of unconventional, creative, data-driven techniques to quickly acquire and retain customers. But on the other hand, for growth marketing is actually a broader discipline that encompasses a more holistic approach to driving growth. It involves utilizing a combination of marketing strategies, tactics, and tools to achieve sustainable and scalable growth over long term. Because you see, what PayPal and Hotmail and the other guys mentioned were trying to do was to look for one thing to quickly grow one metric that matters very quickly in that particular moment of time. And that's the difference between hacking growth and growth marketing. Growth hacking is usually situational, in that you are trying to do one thing, maybe grow the customer per time. Growth marketing, on the other hand, is thinking about the entire life cycle of what you are trying to achieve with your business. So you understand. So it involves automation. It involves a whole lot. And it has a lot of different moving pieces. So that's the difference there between growth hacking and growth marketing. In other words, many people will claim that you have growth marketing as a broader category, and then growth hacking is like a subset of that. So you can still growth hack, but growth hacking is not the only thing you're trying to do. You're not just trying to hack growth, you're thinking about the entire life cycle. You're trying to do something sustainable for your business. So look at the difference just a little bit here. This is from WhatStream. Growth hacking is looking for rapid growth. Growth marketing, you're thinking long-term growth. Growth hacking is most of the time acquisition focused. Look at all the examples that I mentioned. They were acquisition focused. How do we get customers very fast without spending so much money within a very short period of time? It's usually acquisition focused when you think in terms of growth hacking. When you think in terms of growth marketing, you are thinking about the full funnel. That means not just acquisition, you're thinking retention, you are thinking referral, you are thinking the entire life cycle of the business. In growth hacking, you are experimenting a lot and you are refining your outcomes. But when it comes to growth marketing, you want to identify constant patterns and then redefine or refine your strategies. What are the patterns that you are noticing? Growth hacking is actually hands-on and it is finite. That means it's not scalable. Many of the examples that I initially mentioned, they are not scalable. So in growth hacking, they will tell you to do initially to do things that you can't sustain, things that cannot scale, because those things don't scale. That is not what is keeping all those guys in businesses today. That's not what's keeping Hotmail in business. That's not what's keeping Dropbox in business. They are not necessarily things that can scale, right? But they are hands-on. Great marketing, on the other hand, thinks in terms of automation and something that can scale for a very long time. That can scale for a very long time. In growth hacking, you are thinking in terms of trial and error because you are experimenting. You are bringing hypotheses up, and but for growth marketing, you are thinking in terms of algorithms. This is where AI also comes in, right? You are thinking in terms of systemization. How do you create systems for you to actually grow your business? Then you have growth hacking also focusing on the most important pain points of the business at that time. Whereas growth marketing thinks in terms of customer pain points. So growth marketing is highly customer centric and growth hacking is highly business centric. How do we get users? Acquisition, maybe at a particular point in time. Then you have optimization. That's you are optimizing a part of your funnel in growth hacking. But when it comes to growth marketing, you are thinking in terms of uniqueness of each of your customers, segmenting your customers. You are thinking in terms of personalization. So those are the two differences between growth hacking and growth marketing. Now, this is not a case of either or. Both are important. It's good to think long term, which is growth marketing, and it's also good to think about the things that you need to do very urgently right now for your business. And that will speak of growth hacking, right? So growth marketing requires a full stack marketer, somebody who's not just good with learning how to, acquire customer or just sell or just sell, but somebody who think about the entire life cycle of the business. This is a bit different from traditional and digital marketer, because the traditional and digital marketer is thinking just majorly about the top of the funnel. Another thing to think about for growth marketing is that it's cross-functional. Like I said before, you're going to be working with product dev team with the software engineers, you have the design team that you're working with, you have marketing, social media content. You are working with a whole lot of things, a bigger part of the entire organization that you're working with. So you see a marketer, like the Netherlands people, we always call it, marketeer. You have a traditional marketer or a digital marketer is focusing on awareness, acquisition, and a part of activation, right? How do you ensure that the customers you are bringing, they do the very thing you want them to do? Maybe the first sale that you want them to take, or maybe you want them to create a post first, or maybe you want them to play a game first, if that's the first, if you have a gaming platform. You're right. So that's but a growth hacker, of course, will think in terms of the full funnel. But then again, many people argue, like I said before, that most of the time also many growth hacks are usually for the AAA part of the funnel, right? So you look at a growth hacker and a full stack marketer. We've looked at the various differences before. So a growth hacker, for example, I'll just pick two of these. The greatest wish of a growth hacker is to grow viral, right? How can we have that quick growth? But the greatest wish of the full stack marketer, also known as the growth marketer, is what a systematic approach to growth. That means you know why you grow, and you have a system around growth. You actually have a system around growth, right? You see that also here the most critical skill for the growth hacker is writing. Many of those things are copy. Did you notice? You have to has to do with words. Words. Get $5. Get these. You have to know how to write a copy. So the copy is usually very important for growth hacker. But for a full stack marketer or a growth marketer, you think in terms of analysis. Analysis will be the most critical skills that you need, and we'll look at that later on. So while many people think in terms of a full funnel like this, um, we now have a different proposition now by the former VP of sports, Brian. Brian says that no, businesses and organizations should be thinking in terms of loop. Brian is also the founder of Reforge. Um, and it states that companies should be thinking in terms of loop, because anytime you're thinking in terms of funnel, it means that once your resources from the very top of your funnel stop, nothing is going to happen at the below of your funnel. How about you think in terms of loop, that what you do, your output can feed into your input again. So it keeps going on and on. It's like a system that is rolling. You're not feeding it with anything new. Whatever the output is what is going to impute, that's what you're going to impute into your growth loop, actually. So you have an example here where you have a new or returning user, is created by reinvesting the output of the loop. So there's an output from the loop. The person takes some set of action, and those set of action generate a set of outputs. Those are the steps that produce some output that can be directly, be invested into input. Just to bring it home so that we add context to this. We have a situation like this for SurveyMonkey, where the first step process is that you have a new or a returning user, where the user has taken a SurveyMonkey survey and branding signs up. There's usually, for the free version, you have the SurveyMonkey. He has taken the survey, and number two, there, the survey has been created. So users actually create the survey, right? They come back, right? They come back, they do the survey. And then the next thing that you see is that they send the survey out, right? You create a survey, you send the survey out to your friends. Okay, take this survey. Now, at the end, of the survey of SurveyMonkey. At the end of survey, SurveyMonkey has something like create your own survey also for free, right? Because the output is that, okay, you have sent the survey. When the people are taking the survey, when they are taking the survey, when the people you send the survey to are taking the survey, at the end of the survey, if you're using a free version, what you will find is that you should also create your own survey for free, and then you can click on it. So the output is feeding into another user acquisition, right? So these are the users that have taken the survey in step 4. Those are the same users that become part of those users. They then become a what? A new user or a returning user. Maybe the person is actually a user, but of course the person also takes the survey and then just clicks on that and goes ahead to create another survey. So it's like a constant loop, because what feeds the loop is what has been done within the system, which makes sense. So this is not a case of spending. The more money you spend on adverts, the more you are getting. No, that's not the case in this instance. So we think in terms of growth loop. How do I position my business in such a way that if I want to grow the business, I don't want to think in terms of funnel, but I want to think in terms of loops. Another example is Pinterest, right? Another example is Pinterest, where you find a new or returning users. Always note what the person does in step 4, right? Because what happened in step 4, let me start from step 4 for Pinterest, is that Pinterest actually packages a particular set of contents. Go to search engine, they are very search engine optimized. And then whether you are a new or returning user, you see that packaged content, you click on it, you come to the site, and then when you come to the site, either as a new or returning user, you are activated with content. So Pinterest activates you with specific relevant content. By the time you enter or join Pinterest, you'll see things that are relevant to you based on what you've done on Pinterest, based on who you are on Pinterest, right? And then what do you do when you save your own Pinterest, or maybe you create your own images? You do something right on Pinterest. Pinterest packages that again. They have a good SEO engine. Then they push it to SEO again, and then the cycle just continues on and on like that. LinkedIn has something like that also, where the input is that a new user signs up to LinkedIn. I will get to where that new user is coming from, and then the user actually gets activated because LinkedIn suggests synchronizing contact list, right? If you are using the phone, LinkedIn then suggests that, oh, you have maybe certain people on your contact list. You know how social media platforms, they use your contact list and contact API to sort of look for people that are on LinkedIn. They can do like that. Facebook also does that. So you are able to also, based on your interests, based on what maybe you are a marketer, then they begin to show you people that, that you should be following, things like that. So you have activation going on. Then LinkedIn suggests connection based on your profile and contacts, right? So the first is they synchronize your contacts list, that's contact API. Then they suggest connections based on those your own profile and the contacts that you have. And then you have that like that, and then it feeds as an output, because LinkedIn prompts the user to send invitations to their professional contacts. In fact, WhatsApp does something where if you are trying to, WhatsApp has a loop that they've been using all this while. If you are trying to get somebody to come on WhatsApp and the person is not on WhatsApp, WhatsApp then says something like invite the person to WhatsApp. So it sends, you send the message to the person. I don't know whether people use it or not. And then you send message to that particular contact telling them to join WhatsApp, right? In case they do not have WhatsApp on their phone. So you have that instance like that where we need to think in terms of loop. Now, I believe we need to use both because both are important. This loop is much more important for thinking as a growth marketer. The funnel is important for thinking like a growth hacker, because this forces you to think in terms of different parts of your funnel. Why the loop forces you to think about the entire thing. You have to think about the entire thing. It forces you to think about the entire value that you are giving to the customer, and it makes you to think in terms of loop. So this is the Pirate funnel. Pirate funnel, I think, was developed by Alistair Crowe. one of the this old guys reading a lot of books also. We have the A Hey Hey How. It's a very popular funnel in the startup world, where we have the awareness. Awareness speaks of how many people do you reach. Then you have acquisition, how many people visit your website. And then you have activation, how many people take the first important step. What's the first thing that you want people to take? Is it the first transaction on your platform? Is it the first exchange? Is it the first, if you're a remittance company, maybe the first action you want the person to take is to send at least their first transaction. If it's a social media platform, they don't need to spend. So activation for some particular business is the first transactions, right? Activation for some other business like social media, the first might not be that. It might just be your first post, right? That may be the first thing they want you to do. They want you to create a post. Maybe that's it. They say create your first post. That may be activation. That means you are activated. Then you have retention. How many people come back or how many people buy again? How many people keep coming back? That's retention. Out of the people that are activated, then you have revenue, because revenue is now based on if you are having returning customers, that's how you begin to really have revenue. And then you think in terms of out of the set of people that are giving you revenue, how many of them actually referring your businesses to other because they are satisfied with your business. So that's how the pirate funnel work. Please pay attention to the pirate funnel and pay attention to the loop. Both of these things are important. It's not a this or that. The loop is good for sustainability and helps you to manage cost properly, and makes you to think about the customer. This just simply makes you to think about the business process, or this makes it, the pirate funnel just makes you to think about the sales process. So growth loops versus growth funnel. So why growth loop provide a more dynamic and interconnected view of growth? The growth funnel provides a structured framework for understanding and optimizing the customer acquisition and retention process. So growth loops help you to think about the entire life cycle of the typical user rather than optimizing different parts of the funnel. So one is about business, one is about the customer. So one is customer centric, and one is long term, right? Thinking. And then the other one, which is the funnel, think in terms of the sales funnel, and is not necessarily long term. It thinks about what is most important right now to focus on. So before we start growth hacking or growth marketing, please note that a magic growth hack that works for all of us does not exist. Does not exist, even if the businesses are the same, because every businesses are actually unique. Every businesses are actually unique. So this is, we just introducing the course to you. So we will then delve right into it and begin to move on to the next part of the course. Thank you.